Welcome to the CEN show, platform where we learn from the world community. I'm your host, Raski Mascani, and we have on the panel Brother DX, Professor Amin Ra, and Brother Mashinda. Tonight, our guest is Noble Carlos. Noble Carlos was on before with us, and he was en route to, I think, Texas. So it was kind of like a little interference in the presentation that he was doing. So he said he would come back, and now he's back. And Noble Carlos is a very aspiring, inspirational young man. And from what I know about him, he's highly intelligent, and he's an entrepreneur. He's he's currently saying that he's learning how to be a family man and all of that, assisting his family. But we want to get right into it. The topic tonight is self-responsible code. So welcome back, Noble Carlos. You can begin your presentation. Tell us a little about yourself also.
Thanks for having me. Well, um, about myself, my name is Noble Carlos. I got that name by my ways and actions being noble and my name being Carlos, which translates to free man. So I'm a noble free man at that. 22 years young at this moment as I sit here before you. Highly intelligent because I've learned my ancestral intelligence is in my DNA. It's embedded in me, regardless of where I go, who I talk to, what I become. I'm still going to be the same, and it's important for me to, acknowledge that and move forward in every conversation and hold myself to a higher standard because I am higher than anything that I could not fathom or anything that no one else could imagine. At the end of the day, I'm beyond any limitations that any of this world could put on me. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself. Photographer, videographer, traveling photographer, traveling videographer. Received Lifetime Achievement Award for my services, and yeah, now we're here. Yeah, great
Welcome,
achievement.
welcome.
Gratitude. Yeah, I chose, well, more or less, it chose me. The self-responsibility code. What is the self-responsibility code? I think for starters, we got to start with self. What is self? Um, Acknowledging me as an individual, I've realized that I came here with certain gifts, certain understandings, certain things to apply, and with that came my ability to respond to things. That comes forth the responsibility, my ability to respond to myself. Um, acknowledging acknowledging the power which I do have on a daily basis, I'm able to look in the mirror and say to myself, I'm I am me. I am my my past, I'm my future, I'm my present. With the codes, codes, if you don't know what a code is, some would say it's an encryption, some would say it's a standard of which you need to live by. Some would say many different things, and I would say it's a way to live by. The self responsibility code to me is a way that I'm able to navigate in this world with other people. Not pushing my philosophies onto other people, not pushing my understanding or my understanding or my overstanding onto other people, allowing individuals to be themselves while I show up as myself. Um, that is the most important thing I could say to the self responsibility code is allowing other individuals to show up as themselves for themselves with you, and you do the same, showing up as yourself for yourself with other individuals. um, Self responsibility code came to me maybe a year ago when I started to understand that every decision, every action that I take is a reflection of my thought process. A man, let's see, because I have it written down, and this is I want to say it word for word. A man is nothing else but what he thinks of himself and from there, that is what he becomes. A man is nothing else but what he thinks of himself, and from that is what he becomes. Growing up, I had parents who were Christians, and well, majority of us can understand where this goes. But my mom, um, delightful woman, she would always say, "My sins, my sins fall on her until I turn 18." And anytime I would be, quote unquote bad or do something that was displeasing, my mentality was it would fall onto her because I wanted her to feel the anger that I had, to experience the things that I was experiencing until I realized, no, they're on me. It was all on me from the beginning. And it didn't start happening till I was able to really respond to myself, my thoughts, how I interacted with myself, how I held myself in other people's shadows, like such as my parents, how I articulated myself. Um, More importantly, how I showed up for myself, like what was my ways of showing myself intimacy. Um, and having that understanding allowed me to really, really stick to the basics of life. Your my basics was, what do I eat? Where do I sleep? What do I drink? And then what do I goes into what I eat. But my ear gate, my eye gate, and my ear gate, my eye gate, and my mouth gate. With that being said, I've realized that those three things, and even what I smell, but that's here or there. Those three things right there allowed me to understand that I am in control of my thought process. I am in control of the way I respond to things. I'm not in control of what happens for me or to me, or however you want to put it. I'm not in control of those things, but I am in control of what I project out. And through that, once again, came the self responsibility code of understanding how to navigate with yourself, for yourself, as yourself in this world with other individuals. So, yeah, that's my understanding. That's fine. And I know it's something that I'm going to continue to develop because, as you spoken or as you said at the beginning, I'm learning how to be a family man. That part of my life is forever gonna change, man. Y'all are grown men. Y'all understand that the man that y'all were yesterday isn't the man that y'all gonna be tomorrow. And it's a continual learning experience. And I've now understood that I cannot blame any man that came before me because they are only doing the things that they were taught how to do, or they're only doing the things that they know, or they expose themselves to. And I just realize now with this self responsibility code, I have to expose myself to many forms of life, such as different forms of water, different forms of education, the highest level of the highest level of experience in life as myself for myself, you know, so that I can move higher in my consciousness. And that's another thing, your consciousness. Self responsibility code is acknowledging where you are consciously, acknowledging your thought processes, acknowledging how you're responding or interacting with things, but your thought process. What do you think? You can only see as far as you think. If you don't understand that, then you can only think as far as you can comprehend things. If you don't know how to comprehend things, then it's all right. That's just where you are. Self responsibility code says acknowledge where you are. So yeah, yeah, that's what I got for you. That's fine.
Okay, well, I'm an avid listener of Neely Fuller Jr. and he has a code book,
Yeah,
and it's counter racist codes. So, from what I understand about him, he said a code is something that always works. So, does your responsibility code is something that works?
it works.
It
And anybody
definitely,
can
and
apply
every time you apply it, it works.
every time you apply it. If you
Okay.
stick to the basics, I think,
Yeah.
not even I think, I have now recognized and realized with real eyes in life, anybody, you take any person, you move them from being here in America to South America. They stick to the basics, the basic building blocks of eating, sleeping, drinking, those basic things, right? You give them those basic understandings. Anywhere they go, they can build off of that. Now you start adding in luxury things, or you start adding in different ways of thought. It doesn't really matter. But if you stick to the basics, the self responsibility code of taking care of yourself, what do you eat? Where do you sleep? What do you drink? You know your three eating habits, like your ear gate, your mouth gate, your eye gate. You stick to those basics of what you take on, then yeah, it works. What is your code? How high are you trying to go in consciousness? How low? Where are you at in your consciousness? It works.
Right. Okay.
What are you thinking? What are you
So,
allowing yourself to think?
all right. So let me go to Brother DX. Brother DX, I met Noble Carlos through Brother DX. Brother DX, you have any questions for him or comments?
Yeah, just a slight question. Like Carla, what would you say to someone who maybe didn't have the information to know what a code is or the discipline to administer, how they react to certain things? Because even though it might be easy for some, other people might be struggling with anxiety or having anger management issues or something like that and don't have that kind of discipline. What would you suggest in that, and how would the code work for someone like that?
That's a great question. First of all, I want to say discipline is very, very vital, regardless of where you are at in your journey. Lacking discipline is discipline is vital. Having the discipline to simply rise up every rising and brush your teeth, rise up every rising and water your plants, rise up every rising and do the things that you know you need to do, because if you didn't, life would be taken away in certain instances. Like if you don't water the plant and it's not outside where water is naturally abundant, the plant will die. And you were responsible for that plant. I would say to a person that doesn't have the discipline, go and learn how to become disciplined. First, acknowledge what discipline is, but go learn discipline, because you've already understood, right, why having discipline is important. Because everything you've done before not having discipline is, I'm not going to say it's bad, because at the end of the day, everybody has their own understanding of, their situation. But I can speak for myself. Before I understood what discipline was and how to apply it or how to put it into a daily practice, my life was all over the place. Um, I didn't have any type of structuring, so anybody I interacted with could tell. Anybody that I wanted to build a relationship with, the relationship perished. Not because I didn't put in the effort, it's because I lacked the discipline to grow the relationship. Any animal I had passed away. I lacked the discipline to feed it. Um, it was easy, like having locks. I mean, I'm more disciplined now to keep up with it, get a retwist. But before I had locks, it was easy for me just to be like, oh, like I can go get a haircut and allow the barber to do it for me, which that's giving responsibility away. That's outsourcing the fundamental building blocks of what makes you you. Like I got locks because this is something I wanted, right? With that understanding, I took on a responsibility to, be disciplined enough to take care of it. I have plants beside me, right? I took the responsibility to make sure that this plant thrives. That's having discipline. Now, with that being said, I can look at this plant as a girlfriend. I can decide for myself, hey, I want a girlfriend, which that means I have to water the relationship in many different ways and forms because you just can't give her water and expect her to, yeah. But hey, that's neither here nor there. But the relationship has to be nourished. I would say understand why discipline is important. Um, and also remind yourself daily of what life is like without discipline because it's not just going to happen overnight and it's not going to happen over a week. If you don't instill the habits of having discipline, then yeah, you could have a great schedule, but then it goes out the window when you're no longer thinking about it because out of sight, out of mind. So that's what I would say. Understand what discipline is, and then or go out here and figure out what discipline looks like for you, and then also remind yourself constantly what life was like without discipline. That way, you stay locked and you stay focused on what you want.
And where did you get your discipline from?
Realizing that I am responsible for myself, my ability to respond for myself. Years of, and I'm only 22, years of experiencing life being a victim, years of spending my life blaming others, years of my life of things not working the way I commanded them to work, years of relationships just ending, years of deals not falling through, years of money coming in and money coming out. And I'm not talking about flowing in and flowing out, you know? I'm talking about years of just, yeah, miscommunication, misguidance, anything you mismanage, you will lose. So in the mirror, that I have to take initiative of my life. I have to be responsible of myself. And that's where it came from. No one told me. Like no one came out and directly said, hey, you're undisciplined in this area. You need to fix it. Now they might have said it non-verbally and just left, but it took some time for me to recognize those instances or those experiences where people would just leave.
All right,
Excellent.
thank you.
Yeah, I'm listening to that, and I think that you went through a process where you start looking at your action, self-evaluation, and that's important to self-evaluate, and you and look like you was learning from your mistakes. So that's excellent. All right, I'm gonna go to Professor Ra because I know Professor Ra wrote down some things, and I want to see what Professor Ra has to say and ask.
I'm buying Ghani again, Brother Carlos. Um, Appreciate what you've been saying, if I understand it correctly. When you say you're a traveling videographer and what else? And
Oh,
photographer?
traveling videographer and photographer. Yes.
Okay, so that's your business?
Yes.
Okay, how long you been into that?
A decade now. 10
10
years.
years. 10
Yeah,
years.
yeah. I became a professional about 5 years in, but 10 years actually having clients. Uh,
So you started at 12?
Indeed. My
Okay.
uncle was a photographer. I
But
had a camera.
you weren't when you were 12, you didn't start a business then, did you?
No, didn't start a business. Didn't start the
When
business.
did you start your business as a
Back in
video?
2017.
Okay, so you've been doing this for about what, 7 years or so?
Professionally.
Okay. The other thing is, how do you facilitate that? Do you advertise, or do people online, or how you can deal with that? I mean, when you say you have your business, is it a physical business or online business or what?
It's actually both. This previous year, what just happened was before I made my shift, I was working at a media company out in Texas called ClearScope Media, and I was traveling with them, doing tours with Tamla Man, Tasha Cobbs, Kirk Franklin, Naomi Ring, which is Maverick City. I had put my business on halt because I'm traveling at that time period, and there's kind of no marketing I could do for that instance. However, I was still editing photos for other individuals, which adds on to my resume.
So they
Then,
hired you to travel with them and take pictures and video?
yes, as a part of the media company.
Oh, the media company was
Yes,
hired, and and they designated you as the person to go.
indeed. On that tour, I was the front of house videographer and stage lead, and then lead videographer.
You had mentioned that you came into power. You came here with power. Did you remember making that? What do you
Oh
mean?
yeah, without a doubt.
What do you mean by that?
This is good. That's a great question. What do I mean by coming into power? So that's where I feel like my understanding of self responsibility code is. I remember when I was 6, um, I was at daycare. I used to go to this daycare called Kids Around the Clock. Anyways, I don't really remember what was happening externally, but I do remember internally. I found myself in the bathroom and I looked into the mirror like a good stare. And I was like, what am I? Who am I? And I got very close to that.
What age were you when you did that?
6, 6. Yeah, I was in
6 years.
daycare at the time period. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I tried to unlock that part of myself, and I feel like it was more like the subconscious or anything. But having that level of awareness, or to attempt to have that level of awareness, is powerful. Before that, I was having instances with my parents where my mom had a guy friend, and this guy friend had brought in a lot of exotic plants and a lot of exotic fish. I was more curious about the fish than anything. And one day I found myself digging in the fish tank, trying to play with the fish, right? And I got a whooping for that. And after explaining to them why I was playing with the fish, um, they found out that I was a genius, but not necessarily in that sense of like being able to invent things, a genius in my thought processes, the way I interact with individuals. My question to them was, why can I not pet the fish? And their response was because they're fish. And I said, then why are they called pet fish if I can't pet them? And of that level of that level to be able to comprehend something, that's powerful. That level of thinking is powerful. That level of like just period. That level is powerful. So
Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I'm actually the youngest.
You're the youngest. Did they have that ability when they were young?
I had a sister. Um, she started learning multiple languages around the age of 11.
Mm.
Yeah. I have a niece right now, which is her daughter. She is she is similar to that too. So
Mm.
yeah.
So you're saying that from the standpoint of your family and others that you demonstrated a sense of maturity for your age at 6 and being able to articulate and ask questions and see things from a more mature level than the average 6-year or 12-year-old.
That I would, and now I'm starting to see like there's more individuals like myself during that time period, but around the area that I was in. Like I didn't hear about that in North Carolina. I didn't hear about that in Kings Mountain, Grover. I didn't hear about that in South Carolina, probably because that wasn't something a lot of people talked about. Like it was looked at as something like quote unquote having ADHD or you know, having these issues and things like that. But now I'm realizing like those things that we call that is actually there's something underlying there that they try to cover up. So
Now, you had made the statement that what a man thinking, which I guess you meant what people think, if I like to include women maybe
Yeah,
even
yeah.
people think that's who they are, or that's what they are, what they think of themselves.
I wouldn't say that. I would say a man is nothing else but what he thinks of himself, and from that is what he becomes.
He becomes.
Yes.
And so, but are, are you saying that, okay, but he can get self-concepts from external forces, not just internal?
Whatever you want to think. I've realized, and I don't know if that's what you're. Was that a question? Pardon me.
Yeah. Because see, when you say that, I don't know if codes are the same as, I mean, we all mature to the point that we self-responsibility. And then sometimes we take on the responsibility of our children and things of this nature. Certain states hold the parents responsible for the kid, and can jam the parents if the kid get in trouble, but at the same time applaud the parents if the kid demonstrates, straight A's and all that type of stuff. So what type of student were you when you was you didn't
So
go to college, right?
I did not. So the funny
But
thing
you
is,
were, as a high school student.
high school student. Yeah. Um, I was an A honor roll student majority of the system. I was in a few fights, but during those fights, all of them were for defending myself, so self-defense. But during those time periods of the suspense, no, without a doubt, without a doubt.
Everybody say that when they fight.
Oh man, we got
Yeah,
camera
yeah.
footage. We
But
got
who
camera
started
footage.
it?
We got camera footage. I would say I was more a nerd and into books. And then I don't want to use that term in a bad way. I could use that to, if you understand, you call yourself a nerd, then I was, but I was more into books than into anything else. So a lot of times it would be bullying, someone disrespecting me in a way that I felt like um, I needed to get into an altercation with them verbally. And then some of the altercations would go from just an argument or disagreement to actual physical altercations. And I would say, looking back on it, I wouldn't have wanted to put my hands onto anybody because I didn't really get a point across of saying, bullying is wrong or something like that. But that's neither here nor there. During school, I was actually a very enlightened young man. Majority of the time, straight A's. During the times of my suspensions, I was still able to score higher than the kids who were actually in the classes. Shouts out to any of my teachers if you're watching this. Um, you did say high school, but I'm going to jump back to elementary school. Elementary school, speaking of codes, I was actually in the code of conduct in North Carolina. I've been on websites and the news for reading with this dog called Gil. Um, yeah, so I was more like an A honor roll student than anything.
Okay, but now
Peacemaker. I was a
this is my
peacemaker.
last question, and I'll let Rashenda go if he choose. When you say your code is your code is self-responsibility is one of your codes, or is that's the main code, or that's the only code? The
One more
code,
time. Pardon me.
the code of self-responsibility. That's the one you were talking about. You had a code, and it was the one that you began to discuss was self-responsibility. Is that correct?
Indeed.
Okay, so what does that encompass? And are there more codes that you, uh, because self-responsibility is a Wayne, I'll get into that later. But anyway, so when you say self-responsibility, what do you mean?
The ability to respond for yourself, to yourself, and as yourself.
Respond to yourself?
Yes. Your ability to respond for yourself, as yourself, for yourself. I think for yourself, as yourself. Yeah. For yourself and as yourself.
And
To yourself, for yourself, and as yourself. Pardon me. To
could
yourself,
you
for yourself, as yourself.
could you explain each one?
So to yourself, the ability to respond to yourself is the being aware of how you're thinking.
Your inner being, your
Your
interbeing.
inner being. Yes. Yeah,
Mhm.
your interbeing. To yourself. And also it could be, the things that you put out, like previous works, right? As a photographer, I'm always going back and looking through my work. Because I'm always critiquing myself. You're your biggest critic. I'm always looking through various forms of writings that I've written. I'm looking at things I've worn previously, not even just like, oh, that's cute, but more or less trying to figure out what my conscience was or where I was consciously during that time period. For yourself as yourself, right? Understanding how you show up for yourself, um, for yourself as yourself, and then for yourself as yourself and to yourself. For yourself, the way you articulate yourself to people, what you
Okay.
tell yourself, what you tell other individuals about yourself. I had a situation one time where I was in a conversation. I would say I was ranting or venting to an individual about another individual, and he hit me with something, man. He was like, mind you, I'm talking about someone, not really gossiping, but I'm venting about what I had experienced with this individual. And I had paused because I was trying to get my words together. And he was like, hey, brother, you don't have to explain yourself. That level of understanding that I was really talking about myself through that person, he was able to recognize it. And really changed I really changed my understanding on that is the way I articulate myself through other individuals. So if I'm talking about you, talking about your bad attributes, or talking about maybe it's not even bad, it could be good. I'm really talking about the version of myself that I experienced through you. And I think that's why I say the self responsibility code, because at the end of the day, we're all just, if you don't know, we're all just various forms of each other. Your perception of me is a reflection of you, and my perception of you is a reflection of me. So
That
I mean,
can,
that's very conclusive.
can
Go ahead.
I jump in on this? So can you say that the self-responsibility code is basically a self-study to improve, constantly improve?
constantly,
Yeah.
the ability to respond.
Because you were
Yeah.
saying, get more higher consciousness. And
You don't have to continue to grow high. Like,
yeah,
shouts out to DX. He said sometimes we just be here to be, you know, just be here to be. And I appreciate that one, because I know a lot of times I'm always trying to seek new knowledge. I'm always trying to seek higher and higher. Sometimes you could expand past your mind. You could expand past your body. And being 22, it's a lot of information that personally I don't think I need right now. Truth be told, I don't think I need sometimes it be like that. And you have to come to a certain understanding of yourself or awareness of yourself when to acknowledge that, or when to say that maybe I don't need that right now. That I won't even be able to apply that right. You know?
that's choices. You choose not to go there, and you could visit that later on. But what you're talking about, I'm writing about. So it's it's a beautiful thing to ascend. You're ascending, and it's constant. That's a beautiful thing. Professor Rod, you had any more?
Well, no, I just want to know two quick questions. Are there other codes besides self-responsibility
That I deal with.
that's a part of your perspective? You
That's a
said
great question.
you said one code that you have is the first code was self-responsibility. Are there any other codes besides self-responsibility?
Man, I wouldn't say it's a code, but I'm learning how to not push my philosophies onto other individuals. That one right there is probably like my biggest thing that I'm working on right now, because I I want to like tell the world, like, dude, like, look at this cool thing, look at that knowledge. And it's like sometimes, like, where people are, they can't apply that knowledge, so there's no point in them trying to take it on. There's no purpose of, not saying there's no purpose in that moment. It's not it's not helpful. It kind of hurts them more than it helps them. So I would say that's another code. But I wouldn't know how to articulate that into a code. So I think that's another thing that I've been working on.
All right. What about your concept of discipline? You were mentioning discipline, the importance of discipline and applying discipline. What do you mean by that?
Applying discipline and the
Well,
importance of
what
discipline.
is your definition of discipline? For you, or you have to
I'm trying to articulate this to someone else because it works for me. The ability to focus, like the 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 cause of focusing, if that makes any sense. The cause of focusing, or maybe the effect of focusing. Either one of those. But I would say focus is an acronym. Follow one course until successful. Focus. Follow one course until successful. Discipline is so important to me because without it, I wouldn't have any structure for myself. There's always agendas that goes on, throughout the world. There's always programs that are happening. But in all actuality, if you are not aware of these agendas, if you're not aware of these programs, then you're just following someone else's agenda. You're following someone else's programming. And if you don't have anything going for yourself, by the time you look up, you really say your life isn't yours. You really say that someone else, took responsibility for your life. And I feel like it's very important for me as a youthful individual to say, this is my life and I'm taking control of it. And the best way for me to take control of it is to be disciplined through my ways and actions, be disciplined through, the way I speak of myself, be disciplined in my morning miracles, be disciplined in my sleep rituals, be disciplined throughout the day, be disciplined in how I speak highly over individuals, be disciplined and taking responsibility of myself, the ability for me to respond.
Well, so that's supreme focus. That's being focused. And this is how, when I have my best students, I say that they have clear focus and they're not disturbed, not being disturbed, where it's clarity and with less disturbance.
Yeah.
So that's excellent.
And it's
Professor
important, man.
Yeah.
It's
Professor
so
Ra,
important.
Huh?
anything else?
No, not right now.
Okay, Brother Mashinda.
Yo, all right, good evening. I just want to thank the young brother for coming on and sharing again tonight. Having the conversation. I think it's a valuable. What he's talking about is very important as far as basic survival. Or if you're talking about that ascension in life, that's one of the core things that you got to have is discipline. Actually, it's a trip. I was talking to a student today, 19-year-old brother, and that was the core of the conversation. We were talking about discipline, because he likes to, I'm familiar with this person, and they come into the office and around the campus, and they have a lot of potential, but in their conversation, they talk about, they blame others for their outcomes, if their negative outcomes, and other people can influence your outcomes, where, it's no fault of your own. People go out their way to try to make your life miserable or do something that turns out non-productive. And, so those things happen. But this person, they're in a constant, and so basically I was talking to him about discipline. I said the reason why that your situation is not being elevated, to a positive, or at a pace where it should be, is because you lack the discipline, and I was kind of dissecting today what he was talking about, and so we just broke it down. I don't want to get into what we were talking about. It was just basically I identified in the conversation, that he's continues to lack discipline. I mean, he has some discipline. He has some, for him to get up and go to school and those types of things, which I commend him for. This was an attempt for me to tear him down and make him feel bad, but to just put the spotlight on, some of the things that I think he can improve on if he realizes what I'm talking about. So discipline, I told him it's an active ingredient, in pursuit of a productive life, to survive this life. If you lack discipline, it's a terrible thing. It has terrible results. And again, we life is relative to our own experience. So we do, some of us, a lot of us, and probably most of them, we try to do the best we can within the knowledge that we have, our know-how and our understanding. That's why it's important for us to, try to help each other and teach each other, reflect, and, try to add to the equation, to make it positive. But I appreciate Brother Carlos coming on tonight. I want to harp on youth. He's 22 years old, but it seems like he's been around longer than that, on this conversation. And I hope that he continues to try to not force himself on others, but to be a light for others. I always say that if you say, well, you don't want to, I'm kind of going off of what you had said about maybe not trying to put your philosophy on somebody. Well, it's not, I always say that, that'll come around. Sometimes we got to be a little more creative in our communication. I mean, you're very articulate and you communicate very well. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying in terms of, other angles, to get your point across, because you have a passion about what you're talking about. And I think, I concur with what your the code, self-responsibility, the whole 9 yards. And so what I try to do, like I say, is just figure out other approaches, other angles to try to put that philosophy on them, because these generations, of course, people that are coming into the world, that's in the world now, that's your age, little before, a little after. The conversation of a lot of the older people are talking about is like, what's this world going to become? The world's not going to go anywhere, but to keep it effective, keep it purposeful, to keep it, desirable. We gotta have people like you around. So thank you for sharing tonight.
Indeed. Gratitude.
Okay. Is there any other thing you wanted to convey this evening?
Yeah. So while one of the previous brothers was just talking, I remember that my little cousin, young 16-year-old man, he asked me, he was like, what's the difference between an adult and a child? And in that moment, I was just telling him, like, to my understanding, there was no difference besides the way they navigated through life. One is dependent and the other one is said to be independent. But now I realize you can have some adults who are dependent upon a system or ideologies or things of that nature. But I've realized the true difference is their responsibilities, like their abilities to respond, you know. And it does go into being independent and dependent, but majority of the time the adult is looked at as one is responsible over themselves, you know. And then, you know, some adults have children, so now they're responsible for their children's, their ability to respond for their children. And then a child really doesn't have a lot of responsibilities. Actually, I don't think a child has any responsibilities opposed to being a child, which technically isn't responsibility. It's just a natural way of life. Um, so I would like to say, you know, for anybody who's wanting to become an adult, you know, from some would say boys to men, and to add everybody in, you know, from childhood to adulthood, is I would say understand the discipline. Understand what discipline is for you. Understand, you know, how you can apply it to your life, but also understand what discipline, what lacking discipline would do to you. You know, that effect. What does lacking discipline do to society around you? So that way you know how to interact with other individuals. And like the good brother just said, maybe it's not, you know, me pushing my philosophies on other people. Maybe it's the way I articulate them. Maybe me being disciplined enough to recognize that I'm a light. You know, I'm a natural light. I should be disciplined enough to stay a light and not dim my light, regardless of, you know, how other individuals view it. Like a lighthouse doesn't dim its light when there's a ship out there that, you know, the people on the ship can get blinded by the light. The lighthouse is just gonna shine its light regardless. You know, allow other people to put on shades, but just be disciplined enough to be myself. So I can say that to anybody: be disciplined enough to be yourself, because you're created for a reason. And you know, be that during every season.
Right. Excellent. Brother DX.
Shouts out to that brother. You know,
DX.
I'm thankful. I'm thankful to be disciplined enough to listen to my intuition. To meet brother DX, that was divine. You know, that was divine. I was disciplined enough to listen. I was disciplined enough to remain in character. You know, I was disciplined enough to recognize, you know, that any quote unquote missed opportunity is actually a door opening. Any door that shuts, there's always a door that opens. So shouts out to DX.
Well, thank you, Carlos. I'm humbled in a very special way. Yeah, the aspect of discipline, just to conclude, just kind of put a little spin on it. For the most part, it deals with morality and it deals with integrity. You know, like you said, having and knowing what your personal goals or your personal codes are, and sticking to those codes when nobody's looking. The aspect of personal integrity would be a good definition of discipline, uh, and being committed to a particular standard and holding to that standard as a personal responsibility to yourself, so that you can aspire to achieve a particular goal or a particular lifestyle, or however according that you've chosen to live. And I think it's a very good topic. Thank you for bringing it forward. That is a universal concept of self-awareness, um, in a very special way. It's like the you and us way. The you and us is always us and you and us, and we're all sharing and experiencing together. So thank you.
Indeed.
Thanks. Professor Ra.
Oh, it's been a beautiful presentation. I agree with Ms. Shinda. We give thanks to the brother for sharing. Discipline comes in different forms. Sometimes people can impose or discipline you for your behavior. Self-discipline is you disciplining yourself for your behavior and trying to control it and manage it, like having the discipline to be a nutritionist or eat properly with all the distractions and advertisements. Like Muslims don't eat pork. It takes a lot of discipline when you got wiener schnitzels and pork chops and restaurants and bacon and all that, and it takes discipline to be able to. Sometimes when so self-imposed discipline is being able to correct yourself in a strong and keep you from doing things that others may be doing, but you don't. Like I remember when we was in college, everybody was smoking weed. But when you didn't smoke weed, they didn't see it as self-discipline. They thought you was a cop, because you didn't smoke the weed or snitch, or that you was abnormal. What's wrong with you, man? Why you don't want none of this? But to have the discipline, say, no, I just don't smoke weed. I don't drink. I don't smoke cigarettes. That's self-discipline. Because so many people that don't have that ability or had it, but then they got hooked and they can't stop. They don't have the interpersonal strength to stop. So, sometimes it comes with maturity, your personal discipline. And depending on, like you were saying, at an early age, you became focused on self-discipline. Some people don't get it until they're older. And sometimes circumstances make them start disciplining themselves. So it's a beautiful concept of having your own personal codes of conduct and behavior and responsibilities and holding yourself accountable for your own behavior and your
There's
own
nobody.
in your own aspects. I mean, you can have bad thoughts and that can produce bad behavior. But you got to be able to get that thought out your head, somebody insults you and years ago you had fire on them, just light them up. But now you're saying, I don't even care, man. You call me whatever you want, I'm gone. Martin Luther King exemplified a lot of discipline during the nonviolence. Because most people don't believe in that in America, So, it's a good concept. That's it, Rashidi.
Thanks, Professor Rob. Noble Carlos, what you want to leave us with, man?
Man, I came from Texas, you hear me? So they was like, come take it. And that was that taught me a lot about how to be more independent. And I would say a lot of my discipline also came from being out there in Texas because, being quote unquote a Texan, you realize like no one's coming to save you. No one's really coming to police you either. So regardless if you get up for school, you don't get up for school, no one's coming. you know. So I would say just make sure you hold yourself to a higher standard each and every day. You hold yourself to what you want to be opposed to what society says that you got to be, unless they say you got to be a king. They say you got to be, who you're born to be, then I'll be that. But anything less than that, I wouldn't acknowledge it, because at the end of the day, this is your life. This is truly you. And whether you think it's just a dream or you think it's reality, it's what you say it to be. I cannot tell you that it's something else. I wouldn't even say, don't believe me. Don't believe me. Go do the knowledge for yourself. Come to your own understanding. I would say that. So peace, love, light, breathe. Don't forget to breathe. I love you through.
Excellent, brother. I'm glad you came on, and we would like to get you back at a later date. Also, you could come and visit with us whenever you like, because it is open to the public. Appreciate Brother DX, Brother Machinda, and Professor Ra for being here. Brother Carlos, keep doing your thing, man. You got a good thing going.
Gratitude.
So we're gonna take our pause. Professor Ra, anything for next week?
I haven't gotten it together yet, but I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay, so next week we have Brother Muko coming on, and he's gonna talk about the movie Leave the World Behind. It's a movie on Netflix. Let me share that. Let me pull it up so people can see it, because I know a few people saw the movie. I saw it, and brother Muko and I was talking about it, and he was really interested in doing like some type of review. So here's a clip of it right here. I'm not going to play the clip, but here it said "Leave the World Behind," and take a look at the cast. So you guys know some of these actors and actresses. You got Julia Roberts. I don't even know how to pronounce this brother name, but he's pretty popular. Mahershala Ali. Got Ethan Hawke. He's pretty popular, and then you have some Kevin Bacon, another popular actor. So that was on Netflix, and I saw it. Pretty interesting movie. At times, a little heartfelt, but we're gonna get into that. So each one teach one in Conscious Corner. We're gonna take our pause. Have a good evening.
All right, my brother.